Tristan and Isolde. Tristan and Isolde is an opera in 3 acts by Richard Wagner to a German libretto by the composer, based largely on the 12th century romance Tristan by Gottfried von Strasbourg. It was composed between 1857 and 1859 and premiered at the Königliches und National Theatre in Munich on 10th June 1865 with Hans von Bülow conducting. Wagner referred to the work not as an opera, but called it eine Handlung, literally a drama, a plot, or an action. Wagner's composition of Tristan und Isolde was inspired by the philosophy of Arthur Schopenhauer, particularly the world as will and representation, as well as by Wagner's affair with Mathilde Wessendonck. Widely acknowledged as one of the peaks of the operatic repertoire, Tristan was notable for Wagner's unprecedented use of chromaticism, tonal ambiguity, orchestral color, and harmonic suspension. The opera was enormously influential among Western classical composers and provided direct inspiration to composers such as Gustav Mahler, Richard Strauss, Alban Berg, Arnold Schoenberg, and Benjamin Britten. Other composers like Claude Debussy, Maurice Ravel, and Igor Stravinsky formulated their styles in contrast to Wagner's musical legacy. Many see Tristan as a milestone on the move away from common practice harmony and tonality, and consider that it lays the groundwork for the direction of classical music in the 20th century. Both Wagner's libretto style and music were also profoundly influential on the symbolist poets of the late 19th century and early 20th century. So, on the wiki page, there are lots of options and little sections. So there's composition history, there's the premiere, there's information on the premiere, there's performance history, significance in the development of romantic music, and the roles, instrumentation, synopsis, influence of Schopenhauer on Tristan und Isolde, opinion against Schopenhauer influence, reactions to Tristan und Isolde, recordings, concert extracts, and arrangements in popular culture, references, notes, sources, and further readings, such and that. And I will read just a couple more, including roles, maybe instrumentation and synopsis, and just one other excerpt maybe. So there is also a brief history of Wagner while he was writing the opera. So Wagner was forced to abandon his position as conductor of the Dresden Opera in 1849, as there was a warrant posted for his arrest for his participation in the unsuccessful May Revolution. He left his wife, Mina, in Dresden and fled to Zurich. There, in 1852, he met the wealthy silk trader Otto Wessendonck. Wessendonck became a supporter of Wagner and bankrolled the composer for several years. Wessendonck's wife, Mathilde, became enamored of the composer. Though Wagner was working on his epic Der Ring des Nibelungen, he found himself intrigued by the legend of Tristan und Isolde. So there's a lot more history that it goes through, which is pretty good and interesting. I suggest maybe further reading if you're interested. And then there's information on the premiere. Let's see. Looks like didn't exactly get it. So then there's a piece on the significance in the development of romantic music, since Tristan and Isolde was a turning point in opera. The score of Tristan and Isolde has often been cited as a landmark in the development of Western music. Throughout the opera, Wagner uses a remarkable range of orchestral color, harmony, and polyphony, doing so with a freedom rarely found in his earlier operas. The very first chord in the piece, the Tristan chord, is of great significance in the move away from traditional tonal harmony as it resolves to another dissonant chord. And there's a little section of it to play on this Wikipedia page. So, a list of the roles. Tristan, a Breton nobleman adopted heir of Mark. Isolde, an Irish princess betrothed to Mark. Brangene, Isolde's maid. Curvenal, Tristan's servant. Mark, king of Cornwall. Melote, a courtier, Tristan's friend. A shepherd, a steersman, a young sailor. And some sailors, knights, and esquires. Instrumentation. Tristan und Isolde is scored for the following instruments: 3 flutes, 1 doubles piccolo, 2 oboes, cor anglais, 2 clarinets, bass clarinet, 3 bassoons, 4 horns, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones, bass tuba, timpani, cymbals, triangle, harp, first and second violins, violas, violoncellos, and double basses. Die Streikinstrumente sind versugluk gut und stark zu besetzen. The string instruments are to be exquisitely cast in quantity and quality. On stage, cor anglais, 6 horns, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones. Now for the synopsis. Act 1. Isolde, promised to King Mark in marriage, and her handmaid Brangene are quartered aboard Tristan's ship, being transported to the king's lands in Cornwall. The opera opens with the voice of a young sailor singing of a wild Irish maid, Westwärts schweift der Blick, which Isolde construes to be a mocking reference to herself. In a furious outburst, she wishes the seas to rise up and sink the ship, killing herself and all on board. Erwacke mir wieder kühne Gewalt. Her scorn and rage are directed particularly at Tristan, the knight responsible for taking her to Mark, and Isolde sends Brangene to command Tristan to appear before her. Befehlen ließe dem Eingelhold. Tristan, however, refuses Brangene's request, claiming that his place is at the helm. His henchman, Curvenal, answers more briskly, saying that Isolde is in no position to command Tristan, and reminds Brangene that Isolde's previous fiancé, Morold, was killed by Tristan. Morold zog zu mere Brangene returns to Isolde to relate these events, and Isolde, in what is termed the narrative and curse, sadly tells her of how, following the death of Morold, she happened upon a stranger who called himself Tantris. Tantris was found mortally wounded in a barge, von einem Kahn, der Klein und Arm, and Isolde used her healing powers to restore him to health. She discovered during Tantris's recovery, however, that he was actually Tristan, the murderer of her fiancé. Isolde attempted to kill the man with his own sword as he lay helpless before her. Tristan, however, looked not at the sword that would kill him or the hand that wielded the sword, but into her eyes. Sah mir in die Augen. His action pierced her heart, and she was unable to slay him. Tristan was allowed to leave with the promise never to come back, but he later returned with the intention of marrying Isolde to his uncle, King Mark. Isolde, furious at Tristan's betrayal, insists that he drink atonement to her, and from her medicine chest produces a vial to make the drink. Brangenet is shocked to see that it is a lethal poison. Kurvenal appears in the women's quarters, auf, ihr Frauen, and announces that the voyage is coming to an end. Isolde warns Kurvenal that she will not appear before the king if Tristan does not come before her, as she had previously ordered, and drink atonement to her. When Tristan arrives, Isolde reproaches him about his conduct and tells him that he owes her his life and how his actions have undermined her honor, since she blessed Morald's weapons before battle, and therefore she swore revenge. Tristan first offers his sword, but Isolde refuses. They must drink atonement. Brangenet brings in the potion that will seal their pardon. Tristan knows that it may kill him, since he knows Isolde's magic powers. Val ken ik Irlands koningin. The journey almost at its end, Tristan drinks and Isolde takes half the potion for herself. The potion seems to work, but instead of death, it brings relentless love. Tristan, Isolde. Kurvenal, who announces the imminent arrival on board of King Mark, interrupts their rapture. Isolde asks Brangenet which potion she prepared, and Brangenet replies, as the sailors hail the arrival of King Mark, that it was not poison, but rather a love potion. Act 2. King Mark leads a hunting party out into the night, leaving Isolde and Brangenet alone in the castle, who both stand beside a burning brazier. Isolde, listening to the hunting horns, believes several times that the hunting party is far enough away to warrant the extinguishing of the brazier. The prearranged signal for Tristan to join her, Nicht Horner Shan Tant So Hold. Brangenet warns Isolde that Melo, one of the King's Mark's knights, has seen the amorous looks exchanged between Tristan and Isolde, and suspects their passion. Ein einziger wahres Ich achtigt es wohl. Isolde, however, believes Melot to be Tristan's most loyal friend, and in a frenzy of desire, extinguishes the flames. Brangenet retires to the ramparts to keep watch as Tristan arrives. The lovers, at last alone and freed from the constraints of courtly life, declare their passion for each other. Tristan decrees the realm of daylight, which is false, unreal, and keeps them apart. It is only in night, he claims, that they can truly be together, and only in the long night of death can they be eternally united. Oh, sink, I need her, Nacht der Liebe. During their long tryst, Brangenet calls a warning several times that the night is ending. Einsam wachend in der Nacht. But her cries fall upon deaf ears. The day breaks in on the lovers as Melot leads King Mark and his men to find Tristan and Isolde in each other's arms. Mark is heartbroken, not only because of his nephew's betrayal, but also because Melot chose to betray his friend Tristan to Mark, and because of Isolde's betrayal as well. mir dies, Tristan, mir. When questioned, Tristan says he cannot answer to the king the reason of his betrayal, since he would not understand. He turns to Isolde, who agrees to follow him again into the realm of the night. Tristan announces that Melot has fallen in love with Isolde too. Melot and Tristan fight, but at the crucial moment, Tristan throws his sword aside and allows Melot to severely wound him. Act 3. Curwenal has brought Tristan home to his castle at Carriol in Brittany. A shepherd pipes a mournful tune and asks if Tristan is awake. Curwenal replies that only Isolde's arrival can save Tristan, and the shepherd offers to keep watch and claims that he will pipe a joyful tune to mark the arrival of any ship. Tristan awakes. Die alte Weis, was weckt sie mich? And laments his fate to be once again in the false realm of daylight, once more driven by unceasing, unquenchable yearning. Wo ich gewagt, wald ich nicht. Tristan's sorrow ends when Curwenal tells him that Isolde is on her way. Tristan, overjoyed, asks if her ship is in sight, but only a sorrowful tune from the shepherd's pipe is heard. Tristan relapses and recalls that the shepherd's mournful tune is the same as was played when he was told of the deaths of his father and mother. Muss ich dich so verstehen, du alte ernste Weis? He rails once again against his desires and against the fateful love potion. Verflucht sie, verfluchtbare Trank, until, exhausted, he collapses in delirium. After his collapse, the shepherd is heard piping the arrival of Isolde's ship, and as Curwenal rushes to meet her, Tristan tears the bandages from his wounds in his excitement. Ei, mein Blut, lustig nun fließe. As Isolde arrives at his side, Tristan dies with her name on his lips. Isolde collapses beside her deceased lover just as the appearance of another ship is coming. Curwenal spies Melot, Mark and Brangenet arriving. Tod and Hull, Al Zuhan. He believes they have come to kill Tristan and, in an attempt to avenge him, furiously attacks Melot. Mark tries to stop the fight to no avail. Both Melot and Curwenal are killed in the fight. Mark and Brangenet finally reach Tristan and Isolde. Mark, grieving over the body of his truest friend, Tant den Als, explains that Brangenet revealed the secret of the love potion, and that he had come not to part the lovers, but to unite them. Warum, Isolde, warum mir das? Isolde appears to wake at this, and in a final aria describing her vision of Tristan rising again, the Liebestod, love, death, dies. Mild and lace wie lächelt. And that is the end of the opera. Praise God, Jarvis.